بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم نور قلوبنا بالعلم وزين أخلاقنا بالحلم وافتح بيننا وبين قومنا بالحق وأنت خير الفاتحين. ثم ما بعد. First of all, whenever you hear someone with the caliber of Dr. Muhammad al-Zuhaili delivering or doing a presentation and says that Dr. Ma'an Qadha said that, Dr. Salah al-Sawi said that, and I say such and such, it might come to your mind that we are colleagues, we are on the same level, and this is absolutely incorrect. They are the mashayikh, and we are the students, and it did actually happen coincidentally that all of us were requested to write in the retirement account, and His Eminence was, requested to deliver the presentation and just to cover whatever we have written. So for documentation purposes, you should not get confused and think that Ma'an is equivalent to Dr. Muhammad al-Zuhaili, Dr. Salah al-Sawi. وما منا إلا له مقام معلوم. أو إخواننا المصريين كبير 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 والنص نص. Here we go. We are on the same page. جزاكم الله خير. Having said that, I have 15-20 minutes presentation to deliver what I have in mind regarding retirement accounts. And as you see, there are some definitions, like briefly, already our Sheikh Dr. Muhammad al-Zuhaili delivered on my behalf. Let me just go right away to the hot questions that you all have in mind. Number one, early withdrawal from account like 401k. Of course, we have more than one account. We have 401k for the profit organizations or companies, and we have 403p for the people who work for non-for-profit organizations. Regardless of all these technical details, what we need to discuss here is the status or the permissibility of taking a loan from your account. Always have in mind that the 401k money actually is your money, whether the part that you paid from your own pocket or the match of your employer. Both of them actually are yours. Okay. So when you decide to withdraw from your account, it does not mean that you are borrowing money. It's just a legal way to keep the tax to the minimum. It's a legal, tax evasion technique, let me put it this way. Because if you decide to withdraw from your account, you will be charged interest. And guess what? That interest will be going back to whom? To your account again. So you are just taking, it's like a joke, like you take money from one pocket and you put it in the other pocket. Why people prefer to go with borrowing from their account again to keep the tax to the minimum, because that's a tax advantage account. Now the other option actually is just to go ahead and to withdraw from your account. So withdrawing is just a straightforward transaction. You have a saving account, a halal saving account, my assumption, and you withdraw with it. So the question that you always receive from our community members, can I borrow from my 401k account? And my answer is yes, you can borrow from your 401k, because العبرة في العقود للمقاصد والمعاني لا للألفاظ والمباني. What matters in transactions is the reality and the essence, and not the formality or the wording. Even if it is called loan agreement, it is not a loan agreement, because this is your money and you withdraw from your own money. You do it for legal tax evasion purposes. Investing options for retirement account. Generally speaking, you might find all these details in your company and you might not. But overall speaking, we have 5 major options, and I'm positive that Brother Muhammad and Dr. Muhammad already delivered from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock all these details. It's just a quick review of what has been delivered already. Number 1 is called the stable value fund. And this is not an option whatsoever. This is a straightforward interest-bearing investment based, because stable value fund actually is none more than a saving account. Okay, you deposit a certain amount of money, and your principal is guaranteed. And your interest or profit, call it whatever you want, on top of it is guaranteed as well. Whenever you give money to somebody else, and that somebody else guarantees your principal, guarantees your profit, what do you call this? This is an interest-bearing loan. So stable value fund actually is not an option. Stay away from it. And number 2 is the balanced fund. Some of the portfolios that you have or you're like maybe a financial advisor or wealth manager, gives you like different options. One of them is called a balanced fund. It's almost 50% bonds versus 50% stocks. You all know that bond actually is an interest-bearing loan. I mean, you lend the federal government, and of course your principal is guaranteed and your profit is guaranteed, so this is not an option. When you purposely, intentionally decide to have 50% of your portfolio represented by bonds, you are making the wrong decision. So balanced fund actually is not an option whatsoever. The third one actually, and the fourth one, and the fifth one, all of them belong to the stock option. Now, whether you go locally within the US stock market, whether you go internationally, like you diversify, as they say nowadays, do not put all eggs in one basket, whether you go locally in the US, whether you go internationally, or even whether you limit yourself to the stocks of the company that you work for. Again, from a fiqh perspective, I mean, this is a fiqh class, it's not something else. We do not care about all these technical details. What we care about is that you limit yourself to stocks. So no options, no derivatives, no bonds, nothing whatsoever. You limit yourself only and only to stocks. And definitely you have to make sure that your stocks actually belong to companies where their core business is a halal one. This is the fifth option, employer stock fund. This is also allowed as long as the company engages in halal dealings. Something else that's called a mutual fund. A mutual fund actually is not a financial instrument that you trade in the stock market. Mutual fund is a platform. Mutual fund is a vehicle. Mutual fund is a kind of portfolio, okay, like a platform for investment, and you can fill it with whatever you want. So a platform actually is the opposite, for example, of 401k, but it's not the opposite of a stock or bond or derivative. This is number one. And number two, it is well known actually that a mutual fund is a kind of retirement account on an individual basis. If you do not want, or you do not have, or you cannot have a retirement account through your employer, then and you decide to have a retirement account anyway, then the other option that you have is to have a mutual fund. So a mutual fund actually is a retirement account, is an individual based. There you go. It is an individual based retirement account, while the 401k and the 503p are not individual based, are employer based retirement accounts. 401k and the like are employer based. This is, sorry, should be B. Employer based retirement accounts. I mean, just to have this differentiation in mind. Something else that is, I'm sure Brother Muhammad Wahdi already touched on this point, which is the definition of exchange traded funds, commonly known as ETFs. Okay, ETFs. It's a kind of mutual fund, but it is actually run electronically, remotely, without a human touch. So when you have ETF, you don't need to have a wealth manager. You do not have to have a financial advisor. They use like certain math formulas and algorithm to run the account automatically. So the account is already programmed and knows very well what is haram and what's halal based on the standard that you set for him. So you set a certain criteria and you set certain formula for that account to be run. And of course, it is like connected with certain indexes. And the way that it works, that it keeps human touch away from it. It's just run electronically by using mathematics and not like there is no engagement or a human engagement in running the account, commonly known as exchange traded funds. At the end of the day, it's not more than a mutual fund, but it is, as I said, some people prefer to keep the management cost to the minimum. So instead of paying for your wealth manager or your financial advisor, you just go with the ETF, and the outcome result actually should be almost the same. Requirements for halal investment. This is like among the frequently asked questions that we receive as imams and mashayikh from our community members. Okay, what are the options I have, and what are the criteria of having a halal investment when it comes to retirement accounts? Number one, the invested capital and the profit cannot be guaranteed. Regardless of the name, regardless of the platform, regardless of the what kind of financial instrument you have, as long as the principle that you participate, that you contribute, that you pitch in is guaranteed, you need to be careful. There is something wrong. So if the principle is guaranteed, if the profit on top of it is guaranteed, then this is actually not an Islamic option. There is something in the market called preferred stocks. Preferred stocks actually is a kind of like a high status stocks, and we need to find out before we say that preferred stocks are haram or halal. What do you mean by preferred stocks? If preferred stocks means, and I will be asking this question to our experts on the stage, inshallah, whenever it is question and answer. If it means that your profit is guaranteed from day one, regardless. If it means that your principal is guaranteed, then of course, based on this criteria, preferred stocks are not an option. But is it the case or not? Honestly, I do not know. To my knowledge, preferred stocks actually have different definitions, or they are not alike. They are not the same. Some of them actually guarantee the principal and the profit, which is not an option whatsoever. And some of them actually do not guarantee. However, they give you priority to take your profit before others. So if there is any profit, they start with the holders of preferred stocks, okay? Because you have paid more, so you deserve to be like preferred over others and take your profit before the rest of the profit is distributed to other stockholders. Is this understanding accurate or not? I will leave it to our experts to answer, inshallah. So that is the first criteria. Also, balanced fund option is forbidden because the bond is essentially a loan with interest in which the borrower guarantees the money and the interest. Do not go with bonds whatsoever. Number three, one cannot invest in stocks of companies with unlawful dealings, such as, for example, banks, credit card companies, wineries, cigarette or tobacco, obscene products, casinos, and etc. etc. It goes without saying. And number four, or the next one, with the halal core businesses, companies mentioned above, okay, make sure that you keep the haram investment to the minimum, and you keep the haram assets to the minimum, and you keep the debt asset ratio or debt equity ratio actually has to be to the minimum. What do we mean by haram investment, haram assets, and debt asset ratio? I wholeheartedly believe that nowadays there is no stock walks on the surface of earth that's 100% halal. Whenever you go, wherever you go, whether you are in the US or in Saudi Arabia or Algeria or Pakistan or India, it does not make any difference whatsoever. Always there is a certain percentage that contaminates the stock that you hold, whether you like it or not. Now, our job as students of knowledge, as practicing Muslim, is to keep the damage to the minimum. How could a stock be contaminated or mixed with haram? Three different scenarios. Okay, they might all get together in one stock, or some of them might affect one of the stocks that you hold. Haram investment, haram assets, and debt asset ratio. Haram investment means that most of the companies, if not all of them, they have some saving, they have some reserve. Of course, they do not sleep on that money. They just open saving accounts, and saving accounts by default brings interest, and they mix up that interest with the main account or the master account that they have, and they keep operating to cover their expenses and to make more business and more profit. My point here is that a certain percentage of the money that they have is coming from interest. This is what I mean by haram investment. And the haram assets actually is to have a retail store, for example, like a good example, Walmart. Walmart actually is a retail store. Is that correct? The vast majority of the items served there are halal. However, there is a department for liquor. There is a department for pork products. So when you hold a stock of Walmart, it means that a certain percentage, I don't know how much is it. Okay, I do not know how much is it, but there is for sure a certain percentage of that stock actually represents a haram business. It could be 1%, it could be 25%, Allahu Alam. Your job actually is to investigate and to find out how much haram is coming from assets. And the third scenario is what's called the debt equity ratio. Money in this society actually is very cheap. Money is very cheap. Companies usually, if they have reserve, they do not jeopardize their money. They keep their money safe, and they open a saving account and they make some interest, and then they turn around to the closest bank and apply for investment loan. They take a loan, business loan or investment loan for, let's say, for example, 5%. Okay, take the money and they do business and they make 10% or 12% profit. They pay off the 5% interest plus the principal and they keep the rest for themselves. What happens here is that some of those companies actually exaggerate in borrowing money, borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, so much so that a certain stock in the market, believe it or not, might represent 60% cash money versus only 40% assets. Can you trade in this stock? Well, you cannot, because actually you are buying money for money. Okay, $100 worth of stock, $60 are cash money, $40 assets. You cannot trade in that stock in the because again you are exchanging, cash for cash, money for money. So our job actually is to investigate and to find out how much is the total percentage approximately in a certain stock or a certain company, okay? And where is this haram is coming from? Is it coming from haram investment or haram assets or high debt asset ratio? And just to keep it to the minimum. To my knowledge, there is no base, okay? There is no fiqh base, okay, for the fact that if the haram is up to 5%, then it could be overlooked. And if it is more, then you have to get rid of it. There is no base for that. The only standard that we have, again, to my knowledge, is فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Be conscious to Allah as much as you can. Very simple example. You have two different stocks in the market, and some way, somehow, you found out that this stock does have 25% haram, and this stock does have only 15% haram, total haram, 15 versus 25. And there is no third option. Can you take this one? No, you cannot. Can you take this one? Yes, you can. Because otherwise, if you say no, then actually people will be running out of options. Bonds are prohibited. سمعنا وأطعنا. Derivatives are prohibited. سمعنا وأطعنا. Stocks are prohibited. That is too much. That is too much. فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم. Because the only instrument that we have to invest in the stock market is stocks. So if we prohibit every single stock that does have any single percentage of haram, then literally we are running out of options. Alternatives, you can roll over your account to any of those socially or ethically responsible mutual fund companies. Alhamdulillah, we have a lot in the US. We have a ZAD fund, and we have Iman fund, represented by Dr. Muhammad, Jazakallah khair. And we have some other actually companies. We have Iman, we have Amana, we have a ZAD. To my knowledge, we have more than 25 different, what do you call them, Sharia compliant or ethically responsible or socially responsible mutual fund companies. I do not have an access to those companies to give them a recommendation or to say that I have observations. I have no data. I have no access to them. But apparently they do their best to keep their business as Sharia compliant as possible. So this is one option. And in our university, Hood University actually, or Guidance College, we do have a service called Iltizam. Go to Guidance College. By the way, we have a booth outside. It's Hood University or Guidance College. Go to guidancecollege.org/Iltizam. ELTIZAM. Iltizam means religious commitment. We do not have the capacity of those mutual fund companies like Iman and Zad, but actually we can do consultation for you if you want to find out how Sharia compliant your portfolio is. We can give you an individualized answer or report that you need to do this, you need to do that, get rid of this stock and keep this one, and do just some advices for you. Moving on, how to calculate zakah. Zakah on retirement accounts. We have actually more than one scenario. The retirement account might be an individual, and might be individual based, and might be an employer based. So scenario number one, individual retirement accounts like mutual funds and ETFs are zakatable annually in full. Why they are zakatable in full? because actually somebody else is investing and speculating in the stock market on your behalf. Do not tell me that Iman or Amana or Azad are just getting the money and sleeping on them and they are happy with the dividend that they receive. This is absolutely incorrect. They keep trading and buying and selling and watching the news. So someone again is investing the money or the stocks on your behalf. Okay, and that's why actually this kind of account should be zakatable in full. After deducting the fixed assets, الأصول الثابتة, and all other expenses, in case the investment company actively trades in the securities of these accounts, which is most probably the case. Just in case, which is a very theoretical assumption, it does not happen to my knowledge, that those companies actually just keep the stocks and they get some derivatives or profits, which is not the case to my knowledge again. But what if it is the case? Then definitely you need to pay zakah on the profit, not on the market value or the surface value of the or the face value of the account. If this is the case, but most probably it is not the case. And again, you need to deduct, if you would like to, the total percentage of the fixed assets, because they are not zakatable to start with, like the property and the transportation and the security cameras or machineries, whatever you use to run your business, are zakah exempt, as you all know. Moving on, the accessible portion only of any employer-based account like 401k is zakatable annually. This is a very contemporary issue, and as was presented by our Sheikh Dr. Muhammad al-Zuhayli, we have three different opinions here. Some scholars said that your 401k is zakatable in full, regardless. You just pay zakah on 100% of the account because it's a kind of investment. I disagree with that. And some others said that there is no zakah on it because it's not an accessible account. I disagree with that because it's an investment. If you do not have to pay zakah on your 401k, and then what else you need to pay zakah on? So let's hold the stick from the middle, as they say, and say that whatever is accessible, whatever is withdrawable, if you decide to withdraw as much as you can, if you decide to withdraw in the month of Ramadan, for example, as much as you can, how much you will be getting an access to? If your account is 100,000, just to keep it simple, and you have an access up to 40%, then the withdrawable amount is $40,000. If you decide to proceed, you will not be getting $40,000 cash, right? You will be penalized, you will be charged interest and penalty and processing fees and on and on. You make your own math and find out how much you have to pay if you want to proceed. Let's say, for example, $5,000. So the net amount, the receivable amount, net amount is $35,000 in our example. Am I correct? Then you pay zakah on it based on 2.5%. If you pay your zakah in the month of Ramadan, if you go with the fiscal calendar and you pay it in the month of December for tax purposes, that would be fine. Make sure you go with 2.575% to accommodate the 10 days difference between the Gregorian and the lunar calendar. The zakah rate should be, that is covered already, 2.575. If you make it 2.577, that will be even more conservative. What should you do with the haram securities? You did not know that holding bonds actually is haram. Wait till the maturity of those bonds. Receive the money. The principal, actually, the actual amount is still zakatable, but the profit or the interest that you have made is haram. إن الله تعالى طيب لا يقبل إلا طيبا. So you have to get rid of 100% of the profit or the interest that you have made out of the bonds that you hold, while the principal again actually is still zakatable. The profit of these securities. Fixed assets, this is a very valid point. If you hold a stock, 100%, that not the total value of the stock actually is zakatable, because it represents certain fixed assets versus commodities and merchandise that you trade in. So by any chance, if you have any access to the database of the company, you can find out how much is the fixed assets versus the actual commodities and merchandise and badaya that are for sale. Then definitely you need to exclude the fixed assets and to pay zakah on the rest. If you want to stay in the safe side, which is my recommendation, pay zakah on 100% of the value of the stock that you receive. This is briefly within the allocated time what I have in regarding retirement accounts. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا علم ما علمتنا وزدنا علما، وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
جزاك الله خير فضيلة الدكتور معن القضاة. So now we're going to have a break from now till 10:30. Just a reminder, since Dr. Zuhaili discussed partially the topic of life insurance, just a reminder that there will be a presentation on life insurance, I believe at 1:45 today, inshallah. So, and the next session will start at 10:30, from 10:30 to 11:30, and it's gonna be an open mic conversation or Q&A session about questions about the two previous sessions that we have just had this morning, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.